Hello, hello. Welcome to another Sloneek demo. Today we will take a look at the HR Workflows module, which helps you simplify onboarding and offboarding and reduce manual, repetitive tasks to a minimum. Instead of handling everything manually when an employee joins or leaves, you can set up the entire process to run automatically. HR Workflows allows you to launch pre-prepared scenarios based on clearly defined rules and make sure you do not miss any important step. Using a workflow, you can, for example, automatically activate a user, set a team, send an email, send a document from a template, set working hours, absences, or meal vouchers, and in more advanced cases, also send a webhook to other systems. The result? Less manual work, fewer errors, and a consistent process for all new and departing colleagues. We will now show how to create a new workflow, how to set its triggers and conditions, what actions you can add to the workflow, and where to monitor its history, status, and any errors. So let's get straight to it. All work with automations takes place directly in the HR Workflows module. To create a new workflow, we click the Create Workflow button. Right at the beginning, we can choose between two paths. The first is using AI. It will prepare a workflow draft for you, which you can then adjust according to your needs. The second option is to create a workflow completely from scratch and set up the whole process step by step. For our demo, we will take the classic route and build the workflow ourselves so we can look thoroughly at all the options that workflows offer. The first decision point is whether we are creating an onboarding workflow or an offboarding workflow. This is important because onboarding and offboarding have different logic and different goals. In onboarding, we typically want to prepare the new colleague for their start, activate them at the right moment, send them documents, and set up everything they need. In offboarding, on the other hand, we handle user deactivation, follow-up tasks, and a safe end to the cooperation. In this demo, we will create an onboarding workflow, for example, for a new hire joining the sales team. We will name the workflow right away so it is clear at first glance what it is for. For example, onboarding, sales team prog. On the right-hand side, we get to the first key setting. When should the workflow start? The start is governed by two criteria that determine when the workflow is launched, and you need to choose one of them. The first option is that the workflow starts when the user has the onboarding lifecycle phase set in their profile. This method is recommended especially when you do not use packages for newcomers. So you simply start the workflow by going to the user's profile and selecting Onboarding in the Lifecycle Phase field. That will then be the first impulse for launching the workflow. The second option is to start the workflow when the user completes the package for newcomers. This is an ideal scenario if you already use pre-boarding in Sloneek and want the automation to start exactly after the entry package has been completed. Both options make sense. It only depends on how your process is set up. Once we have selected the actual trigger, we move on to the conditions that determine when the workflow will actually start. And this is where the module starts to become really powerful. A workflow does not have to run for everyone. You can specify exactly that it should start only when the user meets specific criteria. There are 4 condition options, specifically team, tags, location, and position. Let's say we set the newcomer's lifecycle phase to onboarding. The first condition will then be that they must belong to the sales team, have the position sales representative, and belong to the prog location. The workflow will start only when these conditions are met. This allows you to have multiple different workflows for different branches, roles, or employee types, and each one will run only when it is truly supposed to. Once we are clear on when and under what conditions the workflow starts, we get to the most interesting part. What exactly should happen? In the right-hand Actions panel, we select the individual events that should take place within the workflow. And this is exactly where you build the entire automation scenario. Actions are divided into several logical sections. Let's go through them in detail. The first section is timing. This is used so that you can slow the workflow down, split it into phases, or run certain steps only at a specific moment. For example, a time delay is available, which lets you pause the workflow for a certain number of days. This is useful when you do not want everything to run immediately, but for example, only several days after the user has been created. Another option is the employee's first day action. In this case, the workflow, or part of it, starts only on the employee's first day according to their start date. This is ideal for steps that should take place only when the person actually starts. For example, you can have one part of the workflow that runs before the start date and another part that begins exactly on the first working day. Another major section is user management. This includes actions that directly modify the employee profile. Here, you can automatically set a team, set a position, set a location, fill in a custom field, activate a user, or conversely, deactivate a user, which is useful mainly for offboarding. This is great mainly because you do not have to enter some of the information manually when creating the profile. The workflow will do it for you, and at the right moment as well. A typical onboarding scenario might look like this. We move the newcomer into the onboarding status. The workflow assigns them to the correct team, fills in the location and position, and automatically activates them on their start date. The next category is notifications. These are used to set up the automatic sending of an email to the user using your own email template. In other words, you prepare the message text once and then let the workflow send it automatically. This can be useful, for example, for welcome messages, pre-start instructions, reminders of important steps, or any other standard communication that you do not want to handle manually every time. And that is exactly what makes HR workflows practical. It not only sets things up in the system, but can also communicate with the user automatically. The document section is also very important. Here, you can insert the send document action into the workflow, which selects a document from a template and automatically sends it to the user. This means that during onboarding, for example, you can automatically send an NDA, work documentation, or other forms without having to think about it manually. And because the workflow is connected to document templates, the whole process is fast, consistent, and easy to scale. The next group of actions is called employee settings, and this is often key for onboarding. It offers setting working hours for the newcomer, assigning the correct absences, setting their salary, meal vouchers, and enabling relevant activities as well as clients. This means that within a single workflow, you can prepare all key parameters for the new person's work setup in Sloneek. For more advanced scenarios, there is the Advanced section. Here we find the Send Webhook action. Using webhooks or API connections, you can automatically link onboarding in Sloneek to other tools and external systems. Once a specific step is completed, an event is sent out and can trigger another follow-up action. For example, creating an account, creating a ticket, or creating an automatic task in another system. This is already truly powerful automation, and it makes sense for companies that want to connect HR processes with IT, a help desk, or other internal infrastructure. Once you have the triggers, conditions, and actions set up, all that remains is to publish the workflow. And from that moment on, Sloneek can work for you. Of course, before publishing, I recommend going through everything once more and checking that the individual steps make sense and also follow each other correctly in terms of timing. You will then find all existing workflows in the main workflow overview and management section. From there, you can monitor, edit, deactivate, or duplicate individual workflows. Duplication is very practical in situations where you want to create several similar workflows with small differences. Instead of building from scratch, you copy one working version and only adjust the details. For example, you can have one workflow for onboarding salespeople in Prague and another for salespeople in Brno. The logic remains similar, but you adjust the location, documents, or some of the steps. A very important part of the module is the history section. This is where you will see all workflow actions that have actually been triggered for specific users, along with their audit trail. History gives you a clear overview of what phase the onboarding is in, which steps have already been completed, which are running, and which may have failed. Thanks to the timeline with specific start and completion dates, you immediately have an overview of delays, blockers, or other problems in the process. By clicking the detail, you can then display the specific workflow progress for the given user. And now one practical question: what if something goes wrong? HR Workflows has thought of that too. If the workflow fails at any point, the administrator will be automatically informed by a notification. In addition, The system will try to repeat the given action 3 more times, always after 1 hour. If the step still cannot be completed after that, the process will stop. The administrator then has the option to restart the workflow in the given sequence, or skip the specific problematic step. In the action detail, you will also see the reason for the failure. Here, for example, we see a situation where the workflow could not send a document because the document template had been deleted in the meantime. So not only do you know that something did not happen, but you also immediately find out why. And that is exactly what you want from good automation, to save time while still remaining under control. And that is everything for the HR Workflows module. Now you know how to create your own workflow, how to set triggers and conditions, and how to let Sloneek automatically do a large part of the work for you. With correctly set up workflows, you can significantly speed up onboarding and offboarding, unify processes across the company, and at the same time reduce the risk of forgetting something. Thank you for watching, and see you soon in another